Excellent job by La Voz, Jose Panetta, making his ZASLOW Show 2.0 debut. Appreciate him hanging out with us. Hey, if you're looking for somewhere to get some great food, great drinks, walk around the beach a little bit, you know we got the amazing weather. Briny Irish Pub, Pompano Beach, you know that's my spot, all right? Now, there aren't any big games tonight, but if you're looking for some live music, you got live music 7 days a week at the world's greatest upscale dive bar, Briny Irish Pub, Pompano Beach. Live music starting tonight at 7 p.m. You got the Briny Hour, that's happy hour, beginning at 4 p.m. today. World's greatest upscale dive bar, Briny Irish Pub on Wednesdays. You got fish and chip specials, but you know we got great food all around. I love the shepherd's pie, oh my God. On Tuesdays, you got the Mahi Taco Tuesday specials. You got barbecue ribs on Monday nights. You know I love they got these egg rolls with cheesesteak in them. Oh, come on. All kinds of craft beer on tap as well. So you want to walk around on the beach, Atlantic Boulevard all the way to the ocean, park behind the Briny. You will not have to pay for parking, all right? They'll validate your tag. You'll take a picture of your tag. You show your server in the Briny. You will not have to pay. You walk around for a little bit. You dip inside. You got some live music. You got some drinks. You got some food. Come on, you'll thank me later. Briny Irish Pub, Pompano Beach, world's greatest upscale dive bar. So I want to get to a little bit of NFL here real quick. You got franchise tags started today. You're going to have all kinds of news over the NFL probably over the next few days. Aaron Rodgers, he's still doing his darkness retreat. I a douchebag. You got Derek Carr. He met with the New York Jets. Apparently it went really well, but it seems like the Jets are going to wait on Aaron Rodgers until he gets out of living in the darkness. You got Lamar Jackson. What's going to wind up happening there? So NFL stuff is going to be in the news coming up over the next few days here. But Eric Bieniemy left the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to be the offense coordinator for the Washington Commanders. Clearly, that's a situation where he believes and it may be true, where he believes he's being passed up for these head coaching jobs because he's under Andy Reid's shadow. Go prove that you could do it without Andy Reid, without Patrick Mahomes. Let's see what happens in Washington. I don't think it's going to go very well. We'll see. But here's where it gets interesting. And there's a Dolphins angle here as well. So, LaShawn McCoy, Speak, FS1. Joy Taylor's the star of that show. On the show with her, you have LaShawn McCoy, you have Emmanuel Acho, you have Dave Hellman. Joy's the star. But LaShawn McCoy, he made some headlines. I think it was on Monday's show. LaShawn McCoy won a Super Bowl a few years ago with the Chiefs, okay? He wasn't a big-time player with them. It was the end of his career. And although I think he finished his career the next year in Tampa, if that sounds right. But LaShawn McCoy did not have good things to say about Eric Bieniemy on FS1 Speak. Saying, and not mincing words, that he has nothing to do with the passing game. Zero. That he's a running backs coach, essentially. We know he doesn't call plays, Eric Bieniemy. That when they're in the meetings, Bieniemy doesn't talk. It's all Andy Reid. And of course, in the end, he was asked, do you think it has anything to do with race? And he says, absolutely not. Now, that's just his opinion. He doesn't speak for, everyone. But I always thought that the race thing with Eric Bieniemy is nonsense. I think it's a false narrative. And LaShawn McCoy said this as well. Teams want to win, man. And enough teams have interviewed Eric Bieniemy that not all of them are sitting there saying, we don't want to hire a black coach. They want to win. Eric Bieniemy has gotten lots of interviews for head coaching jobs. It's certainly possible. Maybe he's a really lousy interview. Maybe he's not fit to be a head coach. Most likely, teams think that he needs to get out from under Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes' shadow. And he's going to have the opportunity to prove that in Washington next year or for a couple years or whatever it is. I don't think it has to do with race. Obviously, we know hiring of minorities, it's a major problem in all sports. It's a problem in the NFL. Although I believe the Rooney Rule, they're just interviewing him because of Rooney Rule. The Rooney Rule to me is messed up. I don't think the Rooney Rule should apply to head coaches. The Rooney Rule should be for coordinators. Think about it. For a head coaching job, they're most likely going to go to an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. Well, if there aren't enough black men in offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator positions, there aren't going to be a lot of opportunities to hire a black man to be a head coach. But if the Rooney Rule applies to offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, and now you're funneling in more men of color into those positions, now all of a sudden, to interview for a head coach, you got a lot more minority candidates. Rooney Rule is kind of backwards to me. You got to put these men in the position to get the interview for the big job. And if they're never in the position, offensive and defensive coordinators, to interview for the big job, you're not going to have enough of them to interview. So I think the Rooney Rule is kind of screwed up in that fashion. But anyway, that's neither here nor there right now. So talk about Bieniemy. But LaShawn McCoy, very strong words about Eric Bieniemy, that he's like, he would not be a good head coach. He doesn't do as much as people may think he does. He's not fit to be a head coach. So you got some former teammates of LaShawn McCoy, former Chiefs players, who were really taking issue with what LaShawn McCoy said. They went on Twitter and they spoke about it. So you got, for instance, Tyrann Mathieu. Tyrann Mathieu tweeted out, "Man, you fucked up with it." And he tweeted that to LaShawn McCoy. Tyreek Hill, Miami Dolphins. Tyreek Hill played 4 years under Bieniemy as the offense coordinator there in Kansas City. And of course was on that team with LaShawn McCoy that won the Super Bowl. And he tweeted to him, Shady Matty B told him tuck that ball. So apparently LaShawn McCoy had some fumble issues, and Tyreek Hill is saying that there's an MO there that LaShawn McCoy didn't like him. That he thought that Eric Bieniemy didn't like him telling him, tuck that ball away. Then you got Jamal Charles. Remember, great Chiefs running back. And Jamal Charles tweeted out, "I have to disagree with you, Shady. Bieniemy coached me 4 years. I learned so much. I learned so many things from EB, and I still keep in contact with him. A great husband and father. He deserves to be a head coach." Let me ask you something here. Did any of those guys disagree with anything LaShawn McCoy said? None of them disagreed with what LaShawn McCoy said. They just like Eric Bieniemy. He's probably a really nice guy, probably a great guy. Tyrann Mathieu, "Man, you fucked up with it." He doesn't agree with anything. He just seems to be mad that LaShawn McCoy went out there and gave his opinion. Tyreek Hill saying Shady mad that EB told him to tuck that ball. That could be true. That could totally be true. He didn't disagree with anything LaShawn McCoy said. And Jamal Charles saying, "I still keep in contact with him. He's a great husband and father." What the hell does that have to do with a head coach? He may be an amazing guy, great friend, great father, great husband. What the hell does that have to do with being a head coach? None of these guys actually disagreed with what LaShawn McCoy said. It sounds like they're mad that LaShawn McCoy, by saying this, is adding to the whole reasons why Eric Bieniemy has not gotten a head coaching job. And they're mad about it because they like Eric Bieniemy. And LaShawn McCoy may very well not like Eric Bieniemy, maybe for the reasons that Tyreek Hill is saying here. That could totally be true. But none of these guys, to me, are disagreeing with LaShawn McCoy. They just don't like that, he may be holding the guy back by saying what he said. So I thought that was interesting yesterday. I think it's probably complicated. I do not believe it's so cut and dry that they don't hire him because he's black. I do not believe that. So anyway, let's get to big deal or not a big deal. Big deal or not a big deal. You know how we do. We wrap up every show with some of the hot stories that we haven't been able to get to so far on the show. So let's get after it here. Big deal or not a big deal. The Miami Hurricanes men's basketball team improves to 23-5 yesterday with a 76-70 win at Virginia Tech. The Canes were up by like 7-8 points for most of the game. It was a 3-point game with about 5 minutes left. Huge shot from Nigel Pack.
5 on the shot clock. Nigel Pack has to force a tough one, and Nigel Pack, this was about the time that he heated up in the meeting 3 games ago.
So the Canes get the win. They're still a half game back of Virginia and Pittsburgh. It's going to be tough to catch either one of them. They need help, obviously. But the Canes looking like maybe a 4 seed. Depends what happens in the ACC tournament. Canes basketball is really good. My buddies who are huge Canes fans, huge Canes basketball fans, they've been telling me all season, yo, you got to pay more attention to the Canes. So I've been watching recently, okay? That's a big deal. Canes NCAA tournament, we may be able to have some fun down here. So that's a big deal. Big deal or not a big deal? A name that's being floated around as far as the Dolphins and free agency is concerned, Miles Sanders. Made the Dolphins want to upgrade at running back. The Eagles, they're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts most likely. Is that going to come at the cost of keeping Miles Sanders? Big deal or not a big deal? I think it's a big deal. I mean, it's not normally the route you go. You want to draft a running back, use them up in their early years. We're not making a lot of money. But Stephen Ross don't care about money. Stephen Ross is old, man. Can't take it when you leave. Miles Sanders to the Dolphins, potentially? I think that's a big deal. I'd be into that. Big deal or not a big deal? So, Dominique Wilkins is now the latest former NBA player, NBA legend, who is unhappy with disrespectful comments made by ESPN NBA analyst JJ Redick. You know I'm not a fan of JJ Redick. I don't like what he did to Christopher Mad Dog Russo, tried to make him out to be a racist. I don't like what he said about Bob Cousy, players from the past, that they're plumbers and mechanics or whatever it was. Very disrespectful as well. And now Dominique Wilkins, he sat down over All-Star Weekend in Utah with my pal Justin Termini, with Sam Mitchell, who was filling in, a former coach who was filling in for Eddie Johnson. And Dominique not pleased with JJ Redick's most recent comments disrespecting today's NBA player.
Speaking of the physicality, there was a debate on ESPN with a former player in J.J. Redick just recently, and they were debating Bird and Curry. And one of the things they said is that Redick said is that Curry has faced more physicality. We called him out on
Let me say something.
Yeah.
First of all, Redick don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm going to
concur.
say it, right?
I agree.
He don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm like, what basketball was you watching? To say something as idiotic as that is ridiculous. The physicality that was a part of the league. Hey, look, when you can put your hand on a guy's hip and make him go a certain way, if you can put that elbow in his chest to slow him up, which we call slowing a guy up when you coming down the lane, so how many guys can deal with that type of pressure? And for J.J. Redick, who've played this game, I'm very disappointed that he said something so stupid.
Now, there's a difference between physicality and great defense. The defense is better today, which makes all the sense in the world because players are better today. The game evolves, players evolve, bigger, faster, stronger. The defense is a lot more complicated, a lot more sophisticated today. Go back and look at those games, NBA Classic in the 80s. I mean, it's up and down. The defense is not great. The defense is much better today. But was the game more physical back then? Yeah, you could probably make that case. Back then, guys are fouling a lot harder because every foul wasn't a flagrant foul or a technical foul. The players were not as players are soft now. You foul a guy hard today, everybody wants to fight. Back then, they were hard fouls. The game was a lot more physical. The hand checking that he's talking about there. You were able to do a lot more defensively back then than you can now, which shows you the defense is better now because the defense is not allowed to do as much as they were allowed to do back then. The defense is better now, but it was more physical back then. That's for sure. Because they were allowed to get away with stuff. They were allowed to do more. But that's JJ Redick. I'm not a fan of JJ Redick. He tried to make Christopher Mad Dog Russo out to be a racist, super disrespectful to past players multiple times. Not a fan. Not a fan. So I'm going big deal. Big deal or not a big deal. XFL opened this past weekend. I won't spend a second watching the XFL. But will the NFL adopt some XFL rules? I think the answer to that is yes. I think this is a big deal. I saw the way that they do the kickoffs. This is a great thing that the NFL should adopt. Now, they were punting from wherever it was, like the 35-yard line, and the blockers were set where they're set, like on, their own 25-yard line. And the gunners, the kick coverage team, was like 5, maybe 10 yards in front of them. And nobody can move until the kickoff is received. That prevents the car crash element of kickoffs. And you're still able to do kickoffs. I would change it from punting to kicking off still, but you would kick off further back, not from the 35. It's all going to go into the end zone. Have them kick from the 20 or the 25. I would absolutely adopt this if I'm the NFL. Got to bring kickoffs back. Every kickoff goes into the end zone. And this is a way to keep the car crash element of kickoffs out of it between the coverage team and the return team. So, the coverage team and the... You know what I'm saying. Anyway, so I'm going big deal. Finally got one more for you here. Big deal or not a big deal? Tonight's Wednesday night, AEW Dynamite on TBS. Tony Khan apparently has a important announcement for the crowd tonight at AEW Dynamite. I have no idea what this is, but this is a big deal. If we're promoting an important announcement from the owner and show booker, that's got to be something right there. So I'm going big deal on Tony Khan's important announcement on AEW tonight. And that right there is another edition of Big Deal or Not a Big Deal. Wow. Great job. Excellent job by everybody who put together a great show today. I appreciate you. Thanks everybody for listening. Everybody for hanging out with us. Make sure you like, you rate, you comment, you tell your friends, you tell your mother I say hello. I love you long time. We'll talk to you on ZASLOW Show 2.0 tomorrow. You know what that means.